everyone, welcome into another video of Matt Sports Talk, and in this video we are going to be talking about the updated RPI numbers because as the update, at least I'm going to see after briefly going over the men's RPI numbers, I'm going to look at the women's ones to see if they have posted. When I checked a few minutes ago, they had not. And now, of course, as promised, I mentioned after my recap videos yesterday, recapping the games from Saturday, I mentioned that I would be back with you today going over the updated RPI numbers, now, which I am going to do that in just a second. Now, before we dive in, if you already are subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if you are brand new to the channel, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below so you are first notified whenever I upload new episodes. And thank you so much for doing so, and please keep sharing this channel with your friends, your family, anybody that you know, and I truly appreciate any feedback that you may provide me. And my goal is to hit 500 subscribers and by February 21st. Now, obviously, it might not happen that way, but at least by the end of this year, or at least by the end of this year, at least by the end of December, I might add, by the end of December of 2026, my goal is to hit 500 subscribers, so please keep subscribing to the channel so you are first notified whenever I upload new episodes. So without further ado, let's dive in to the men's side of things, and I'm just going to be going over the teams in the Crossroads League in the men's updated RPI numbers. So without further ado, let's dive in. And now, of course, for the Crossroads League, Grace is number 2 in the RPI. Really no surprise here. They are coming off of a great win against number 10 Indiana Wesleyan this past Saturday. Grace is just a powerhouse team this year under head coach Scott Moore. They're undefeated on the year, 17-0, 7-0 in the conference, and they are definitely the team to beat, that is for sure. And they're ranked 44th in strength of schedule, and their opponent's winning percentage is .545. Their opponent's winning percentage is .554. So really good numbers there. And Grace, obviously, by far, is the team to beat on the men's side of things in the Crossroads League, no question about that. And then in 4th place in the RPI is Indiana Wesleyan, number 10 currently in the country. They are forecasted to drop down, at least I've seen from an account on Twitter that they are projected to fall 1 spot to 11th, and that's quite a bit at least quite shocking to me, considering that their only loss since the last polls came out was to number 1 Grace this past Saturday. They upset then number 2 Arizona Christian out in Arizona. So again, that's kind of surprising, but obviously everybody around the Wildcats, there have been a lot of teams above them that have lost, other teams below them that have won to move ahead of them, so I guess that kind of cancels that out, so to speak. So I definitely can see why the Wildcats are still essentially a top 10 team. They're loaded with talent, obviously without their star point guard Luke Brown. And I don't know if he's out for the rest of the year, but if he is out for the rest of the year, the Wildcats are still loaded with an unbelievable amount of talent by Julius Gizzy, as well as Crew Gibson, Cademan Bontrager, DJ Moore, and more specifically, Isaac Andrews off the bench has just been lining it up from three-point range the last 2 games. He had, I believe, 27 points on the road against Mount Vernon Nazarene last Wednesday, and he had, I believe, 20 or 21 against Grace 2 days ago, this past Saturday. So obviously he is really becoming the next Luke Brown, so to speak, on the Wildcats team this year. And obviously you love to see that because you need somebody to step up in the absence of Luke, and Isaac is definitely doing that. Now the Wildcats, they are ranked 4th in their strength of schedule, so those are really good numbers for them. Their opponents, they are on the year, they at least their records according to the RPI is 12-3. I believe it's third. Yeah, that makes sense. 12-3. I thought maybe they had won a couple more games than that. And their opponent's winning percentage is .636. Their opponent's is .565. So really not too terribly bad there at all. And then the team below them is Huntington. Now Huntington did take a dip since the last RPI. Now in the last RPI, which was released last Monday, the Foresters were, I believe, number 1. I believe it was number 2 in the RPI last Monday. And then, of course, they suffered at least I would consider it an upset loss to Taylor. And that was at home, by the way, on Saturday. So that obviously was a little bit of a shock. But for head coach Jared Jalk and company, the Foresters are still really loaded with talent this year, projected 7th. And they are currently in that number 5 spot, tied with Mount Vernon Nazarene. Now, I had Huntington finishing 3rd. the league had Huntington finishing 7th, so they're kind of in between where I had them projected to be and where the league had them projected to be. And now, of course, for Taylor, they are they're for real this year, and I'm going to talk more about them here in just a second. Now, the one good thing for Huntington is they rank number 1 in strength of schedule, at least in their remaining games. So obviously that's really going to help them in terms of a high national tournament seed, and as well as that will also improve their chances for hosting the national tournament for the 2nd straight year, at least the first 2 rounds, I might add. And the Foresters, their opponents' winning percentage 671, their opponents 549. So again, really good numbers there. And then speaking of Taylor, out of Indiana, boy, they are off to a fabulous start. They're currently sitting, I believe, 12-3, I believe now, 13-3, somewhere in there. The Trojans are up to 10th in the RPI. This is a team that was projected 7th in preseason, and they are just lining it up this year on both sides of the ball, and they're off to their best start in 10 years. So really amazing to see that under head coach Austin Peters for what he's been able to do with this Trojan team. They do rank 23rd in strength of schedule, which, again, that's still really good. And this is a Trojan team that at least right now, I definitely would have them in the national tournament as a top 5 seed. I would not have them lower than 5th, and I probably would not have them higher than 4th. I'd have them roughly 4th or 5th right now in the national tournament. Their opponent's winning percentage is 579. Their opponent's 542. So not too terribly bad there at all either. So obviously this is another team to watch in the Crossroads League. And honestly, in the Crossroads League on the men's side, of course, this is the side that we're talking about in this video. Honestly, in the Crossroads, I would have to say, at least right now, that 4 teams for sure would be in the national tournament, and that would be Taylor, Bethel, Grace, actually 5. Taylor, Grace, Bethel, Taylor, Grace, Bethel, Indiana Wesleyan, and Huntington. Those would be the 5 teams by far that I would have in the national tournament as of right now. Now, could that change? Yes. Now, could that stay the same the rest of the regular season? Yes. So obviously, we're going to have to see how the last 11 games in conference works out for these 5 teams, because these are the 5 teams to watch, no question about it, in the Crossroads League. Now, is there a chance that one of the teams beneath them could potentially be a national tournament team? Yes. Now, at least right now, the team that I see that could potentially be that 6th team in the Crossroads League would be Mount Vernon Nazarene. And I'm going to talk more about them coming up here in just a second. And then looking further down the list, you have Bethel out of Indiana. They are ranked currently 13th in the RPI, so not too terribly bad there either. Now, they do have a really bad strength of schedule. Their rank is 125th in strength of schedule, so really not good at all for the Pilots. Now, their opponent's winning percentage is 481. Their opponent's is 546. So, yes, that does help them in terms of, again, national tournament seeding. It also helps their chances at hosting once again at home. They did that last year in the first 2 rounds. I think they're definitely on pace to do that this year, at least right now. And then looking down the list from there, at least teams in the Crossroads only, and actually this is the very last team in the Crossroads I'm going to talk about, and that would be Mount Vernon Nazarene. Now, they're currently 63rd in the RPI, so now remember, only 64 teams get in, so if you went squarely off the RPI, which again, you don't do that, outside of the RPI, you have to go off of the Massey rating, the quad records, and the ARC numbers. Now, the quads and the ARCs are going to be coming out next Tuesday, so I will be recording a video next Tuesday talking more about that, both on the men and the women's side for the quad records as well as the updated ARC numbers, because those are really going to tell us a lot of key information regarding the national tournament, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. The updated RPI numbers are going to come out next Monday, so again, I'm going to be recording a video next Monday going over all of that on the men's side, so again, make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And either maybe next Sunday afternoon, I'll be recording a video talking about or recapping all the men's and the women's games from Saturday, because Saturday officially marks the end of the first half of Crossroads League play for both the men and the women. So I'm probably more than likely going to record those videos early Sunday afternoon, recapping all of those games, because there's a lot to talk about next Monday and Tuesday for the RPI as well as the ARC and the quad records. So I kind of want to dedicate that time on Monday and Tuesday to talk about that, and then recap all the games from Saturday on Sunday, early Sunday afternoon. So make sure, again, that you stay tuned for all of that and that you subscribe to the channel. Now, looking at Mount Vernon Nazarene, now, obviously, for them, we're going to have to see where they stand in the ARC and the in the ARC and the quad records, I should say. We got to see where they stand in those two categories, as well as the Massey rating. Now, the Massey rating, I have not looked at on the men's side. I'm definitely going to be doing that tomorrow, just seeing where they stand in the Massey. But this is a Mount Vernon team. They could conceivably potentially get a final at-large bid in the national tournament because they rank 63rd in the RPI. Now remember, in the RPI, 1 through 39 are pretty much guaranteed to be in the national tournament as of today. Now, if you're 40th to 49th, you're firmly in, but you definitely could use some improvement the rest of the season. If you're 50th to 59th, you're definitely, I would say, midway down in terms of a paper, you're roughly midway down the paper being on the bubble for the national tournament, meaning that you still would be in, but you drastically could use some improvements to try and get a little bit higher to get out of that really dangerous bubble spot. And then once you get down to 60th to 63rd, then you're definitely on the very bottom of the paper and you're definitely in the danger zone, so to speak, of not making the national tournament whatsoever. And Mount Vernon Nazarene is definitely in that danger zone on the very, very bottom, definitely on the bubble. Now, the one thing going for them is they are 63rd in strength of schedule, so obviously that number helps them. And then you look at their opponents' winning percentage, 523. Their opponents' 564, so really, really good numbers there. But obviously, it's going to all have to depend on their ARC and their quad records and their Massey rating as far as that goes, that I will be taking a look at tomorrow, at least in terms of the Massey rating. And I will also be going over... I also will be looking at their quad and ARC numbers next Tuesday when those get released, so that's really, really going to be interesting because this is a team. In fact, I honestly think at this point that this is probably the only team below the top 5 that has a legitimate chance at making the national tournament as an at-large team. Now, is Mount Vernon Nazarene going to make the national tournament? I don't know. Could they definitely do that and continue to improve these remaining games? Yes. Now, the key for them is going to be they're going to have to pick up a couple of top 5 team wins. You know, of course, they almost beat Grace on the road last Saturday, only lost by 10, and they arguably should have beaten number 7 Bethel on Saturday, only losing by 1 when they were down 20 at one point. They had 2 chances to win at the buzzer. It just didn't go in. Now, had they beaten Bethel on Saturday, then I definitely think that would have boosted their resume in terms of making the national tournament. However, since that did not happen, they more than likely are going to have to pick up now, of course, they probably are going to have to pick up a win against Taylor. And that's going to be a tall task because Taylor's perfect on their home floor. Mount Vernon Nazarene goes to Taylor this coming Saturday, and then of course they host Taylor at home to round out the regular season. Now, in those 2 matchups, I think MVNU needs I think they need to win one of those. They need one against Taylor. They really need to beat Huntington at home coming up on Wednesday the 28th because that's obviously a team that is right below them, or really right there with them in that tie for the number 5 and 6 spot in the Crossroads League right now. And then, of course, and really their only wins in conference have come to the 4 teams, or the 3 of the 4 teams on the bottom, being Marion, who's currently sitting at 2-5 in the conference, 1 game behind. St. Francis also sitting at 2-5 in the conference, 1 game behind. And then, of course, down from there you have, Goshen that is winless in the conference. Mount Vernon Nazarene hosts them coming up on Wednesday night. And I know there's another team down there on the bottom. Of course, you had, those would be the only teams on the bottom, St. Francis and Marion 7th. Spring Arbor, I forgot about them. Yeah, so Spring Arbor, they're currently sitting, actually, I think they're also sitting 2-5 in the conference right now. So you have a 3-way tie, for that number, 7, 8, and 9 spot right now between Spring Arbor, St. Francis, Marion. Mount Vernon Nazarene beat all 3 of them. They beat St. Francis, I think it was by like 6 or 7 at home, so it was kind of close. And Mount Vernon Nazarene only beat Spring Arbor at home by 2. That was a game where Mount Vernon was up, I think, 18 at one point. Spring Arbor come back late in that game and really had a chance to win it. So And then, of course, against Marion, Mount Vernon Nazarene, really no problem against Marion. I think they beat them by like 11 or 12 or somewhere in there, like 10 to 15, so really no surprise there. So, yes, Mount Vernon Nazarene does have those wins against the bottom teams. However, the key is going to be for them when they play those four bottom teams again. Of course, Goshen at home Wednesday. They got to play Marion again on the road. They have to play St. Francis on the road. They play St. Francis on the road Saturday the 24th. They play Marion on the road Wednesday, February 4th. And they play Spring Arbor on the road Saturday, January 31st. So out of those games, Mount Vernon Nazarene definitely needs all three of them. They need to sweep those three teams. And then after that, they really need to get at least one against Taylor, and they also need to pick up, ideally, they need to pick up another one inside the top four, either Indiana Wesleyan, which would be on the road, Wednesday, February 11th, or beat Bethel at home Saturday, February 14th, or beat Grace at home Saturday, February 7th. Mount Vernon Nazarene, I think they need at least one of those against the top three teams in the conference. And of course, I mentioned Taylor, for Mount Vernon Nazarene, they definitely, I think for them to have a really good chance at making nationals, they need to sweep the teams beneath them on the bottom for the second time this year when they play them, and they also need to pick up at least one win out of the top four teams that are ahead of them, being either Indiana Wesleyan, Bethel, Taylor. They definitely need at least one against Taylor, and they also need at least one either against IWU, Grace, or Bethel. And now out of those three teams, out of those three would be at home in Mount Vernon. So obviously, for Mount Vernon, that's what they need if they want a chance to make national tournament. So that is the updated view of the men's RPI side of things. So again, please stay tuned for that. As I'm going to see. Actually, that's not what I needed. I was going to see if the women's RPI numbers were uploaded, and if they were, then I could definitely record a video talking more about that. I don't know if they're okay. So the updated RPI numbers are not posted yet. So on the women's side, but I hope you enjoyed this video talking about the men's side of things, and if you did, please either like, comment, or subscribe. Any one of those options helps me out greatly. I truly appreciate any feedback that you may provide me, and thanks so much for tuning into this video. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Now, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the NAIA's website to see when the women's RPI numbers are uploaded, and when that does happen, I'll be recording a video talking about that. I don't know if that's going to be today. It just depends on when I see that uploaded. I hope it's today so I can go over those numbers with you, but if not, then I definitely will be going over those numbers tomorrow. So either today or tomorrow, I'll be going over that. Hopefully, it'll be later this afternoon, so again, make sure that you stay tuned for that. And again, thanks so much for watching this video. Have a great rest of your day. God bless.